Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new market update. And boy, today we have a crazy one because what happened over the weekend, especially yesterday on market or before market open, is just a masterclass of market manipulation and insider trading. So let's speak about that. So how did everything start? And you might be very confused. Why did we see such a run up yesterday in Bitcoin, in the S&P, oil drop, Dixie drop, and so on? And that's not because of the war, because the war is not really going into a good direction, and we are officially in the confusion phase, right? We're at the initial phase of the war, where targets are clear, strikes are being very precise, and then it goes into a fade out time, and now we are kind of like in the confusion area where everything is just confusing, and social media or press releases are being used to confuse the masses and each sides on what is happening. And I truly believe that what happened yesterday is just to have a little bit of an edge in the market, Trump trying to stabilize the market so they don't spiral into a big sell-off. Because I think if Trump would have not come yesterday with his statement, and I'm gonna read it out to you guys. Trump came out and said, have had talks with Iran regarding end the hostility, right? So basically, Trump came out before market open and said that he's had good talks with Iran over the weekend, okay, regarding ending this war. And then he made an official statement and said, instructed to postpone all strikes against Iran. Because what happened over the weekend is that Trump said in the next 48 hours, if Iran does not reopen the Strait of Hormuz, then he will start to bomb the infrastructure and take Car Island, which is Iran's oil island, basically, right? So critical infrastructure for Iran. Iran said and returned the favor, said they would do the same to the GCCs. They will attack the infrastructure of the GCCs, energy infrastructure, of course, if that happens, okay? So very bad, of course, that's a escalation in the war. Taking a big step into attacking infrastructure and threatening like that. And then at the same time, or basically later, he starts to come out with this idea that he said over the weekend he had good peace talks, okay? And he said he's gonna postpone, okay? Then he continues and says, that Iran, okay, basically Iran, then timeline wise, and you need to understand, once these positive news came out, okay, so once these positive news came out, of course, Dixie started to correct, right? You can see that over here, Dixie was opening and pumping. And then the news of Trump came in and it started to sell off, right? At the same time, of course, then the S&P 500 starts to sell off heavily, right? Starts to buy up heavily. You can see this big blueprint from yesterday, over 2% up, basically from open to the highest point, 4% of buys coming in. And then, of course, the most important one, oil, right? Oil started to correct heavily. We dropped at around 15% in one day. Here you see a big bearish print, this big bearish candle with a lot of volume, because especially Trump came out with these tweets saying that he had peace talks. Okay, now the funny thing is that not even an hour or 2 hours later, Iran media says there was no direct or indirect contact with Trump and claims he withdrew after threatening to attack West Asia energy facilities. Okay. Then Iran's foreign minister says there are no talks with Washington and accuses US president of buying time while regional de-escalation efforts go on, right? And so on. So basically it was a whole fake thing. The pattern is clear, right? Trump says good talk, algos pump the S&P, they pump, of course, oil or dump oil, of course, right? Peace hopes in that sense. Iran immediately denies. Reality is unchanged, right? Nothing has changed. And the markets already have moved, right? Because the time delay in between what Trump says and then what Iran says doesn't really matter. Even if Iran would have said it right afterwards, the algos would have still started to pump, right? And it's like an algo pump that you have seen also, especially in BTC, right? So if you go into BTC, you see we were selling off. I got unfortunately stopped out break even, and then it started to pump from that point on. Mark the second Trump said he's in peace talks with Iran, and we pumped 5%. Okay, so how do we continue from here? So first of all, that's important to understand why this happened, right? Because it's basically just a fake out. It's algos buying, right? Because if there's a positive headline like that, algos just go in, they understand what to do in milliseconds. Now, the crazy thing also is there was a lot of insider selling and buying, right? So 15 minutes before Trump came out with his tweet, actually saying that, so I'm referring to this specifically. I'm just gonna show you which one so you understand. Why is my Trump? Okay. Donald Jr. Trump. Is it this? Oh, no, sorry. Where's Trump? Donald J. Trump. There we go. Okay, so let me see if I find it here. That was no. There's nothing really on his main page. But yeah, again, it doesn't matter. We saw it here on Walter Bloomberg, which in general is an account I really urge you to follow. So the crazy thing is, once that came out, of course, Algo started to buy, right? I truly believe that all of this in the next 24, so today 24 hours later, 48 hours later, is that reality kicks in again, right? By Wednesday, the S&P most likely is going to sell off again. Oil is going to start pumping again. Nothing has changed, right? Missiles are still flying, embassies are still closed, Iran is still attacking Israel, and so on. So I don't think that, at the end of the day this continues. The only wild card that we really have is that if Trump could double down on the claims, right? If he says it's a secret process, whatever, right? Just continuing to manipulate everyone and to believe that actually there's peace talks and whatsoever. But Iran confirmed that there's no peace talks. So at the end of the day, it's just a whole confusion to pump the markets, to stabilize oil prices a little bit, and to appease the markets also and the people, right? Now, I truly believe it's just going to go on. I don't think there's any substance behind that, and that's very important now when we go into the markets, right? Now, I will continue to be bearish on S&P 500. Yesterday, you can see that if we go into order flow, you can see that we still again had a bearish day for the SPX or for the S&P. You can see we have 67 million call flows of bullish, and we have 102 million put flows selling, right? So there's again more sells than buys. Market is not really buying it besides the initial pump, which is again mainly algos, right? Because they act very, very, very fast. And we already started to say a sell-off, right? So there would have been a re-entry. Now, would I have taken the re-entry? No, I'm still in the position, and you can see my position was very much in profit, came into retesting my entry and now sold off again. So we're still bearish, and you can see that by us correcting in the BC with strong sell-off wicks, right? So you can see there's a lot of sell pressure coming in, which is positive for the outcome of our trade, right? Because I'm selling S&P 500, okay? Let me just quickly clean my nose, guys. I'm sorry. Have a little infection going on in my nose. Now going into Bitcoin, right? Let's speak about Bitcoin. Now, I'm not really considering taking a re-entry over here. My entry was in the past over here, and it worked very well. We were highly in profit, about 10%. Unfortunately, came back. That's okay, because all in all, I'm still pretty bearish on BTC. But considering that, I don't believe that there's going to be a continuous uptrend right now. It really depends on, of course, how we continue now with the whole Trump situation, if he continues to tweet about peace whatsoever, or if there's actually real progress. So the next days, or this week especially, is going to be very, very volatile. I would definitely suggest to widen your stop losses, not in open positions, because you're going to increase the risk. But if you take any positions, make sure to have a little bit of a wider stop loss. There's nothing really that I am opening new right now, right? I'm still going to wait and let the market fade out. I didn't do anything yesterday. I have my positions open, as you guys know, Bitcoin, which now is out in break even, which is okay. So we're going to reduce this one. So this is a break even hit. I'm still selling the S&P 500. And I'm still in profit, right? Now, I'm still long CRCL, okay? CRCL has returned a lot of money for us in the last couple of weeks. Since our re-entries, we are somewhere up to current market price 20%. And then on our initial position, we are up 36%, okay? Now, the problem with CRCL, why I might start to take profits, and that's why I'm telling you this, guys, is because I know that many of you guys have taken this trade with me, following my analysis and everything. And we have talked a lot about CRCL. So fundamentally, I'm still very bullish on CRCL, but that really depends on the market. But the problem with CRCL for the first time is now that we have an active bearish sequence, right? So we might come back to the 128. And if we start to sharply sell off here at the 128, I'm going to close my position and take profits around 10,000 US dollars in profit. If not, I'm going to continue to let it open. But we need to be very careful here. And then even I might go into a sell, right? Because if you look at CRCL for the first time yesterday, we had negative flow. You can see we have 400. Wait, that's not right. That's not. Wait. CRCL. Yeah, there we are. So we had 1.2 million call flow and 1.4 million put flow. So it's definitely a little bit more bearish. Still Paris, besides 200,000 more volume on the sell side. So it's still kind of neutral, but if today there's more outflow, then most likely I'm going to close this position and take profit and book in around $10,000 and good percentage, right? So happy about that. Now, US oil, let's speak about oil again. As you guys know, oil is really going to be an important indicator right now. And as I said last time, our established thesis and mechanism is if oil continues to go up, we continue to sell the S&P, we continue to be bullish on the Dixie, and we continue to sell off in stocks in general and risk assets, right? If oil comes down, which happened yesterday, you see a pump in the market, right? So we corrected around 20% yesterday in the oil markets, and then you see Palantir tech is going up again, right? So we also need to monitor Palantir closely. We are currently up since entry around 18%. And NCLP, so uranium started to go up and got sold off again. If oil goes down and uranium goes up, if oil continues to go high, then uranium will continue to go down, but it's more a long-term spot position anyways, okay? Now, which pumped a lot, which I'm really happy about, is GLNG, which actually is gas, which kind of makes no sense because if he said there's peace talks, that also means that there should be a reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. So therefore, GLNG should have been starting crashing, but it didn't. It went actually higher, and we're currently sitting at around 17-18% profit, which is good, of course. But it's kind of contrarian here, so we need to monitor how this continues rather than FLNG sold off again, right? So it started to pump, sold off again. Back at entry right now, which is okay, but that's the reaction that actually makes more sense. So there's actually a lot of buying power behind GLNG right now, okay? Now, what else is interesting, XLE is the only new position that I have since last week. Sorry, guys. I don't think that I've informed you guys about the XLE because I entered after we did the market update. But XLE, I re-entered. Could have waited for the retest, but no one would have known that Trump comes out with these kind of fake news. But XLE, I'm long-term long, just because it's straight energy ETF, right? So you have all of the energies, you have chevrons, you have gas, everything in there. So it's a more diversified, more slower growth, but also you have lower upside, downside, right? I mean, look, with these news yesterday, it impacts energy directly. You had a drop of 4%, and that's okay, right? Rather than having a 20-30% drop on your position on oil. So rather than going into oil and these kind of gas direct plays, which are already overbought, of course, I'm going more into the ETFs, okay? What I'm looking still at is LIN, which is basically Lint, and of course also ADP and AMAT. So ADP and LIN play into gas shortage, and AMAT is basically semiconductors. So I'm looking for a sell here. Of course, it went higher now yesterday because it's positive news of peace. So you see the direct correlation, right? If there's peace talks, what pumps and what dumps, and when conflict continues, you see what pumps and dumps, right? So that's just things we need to monitor right now. But when it comes to that, the only thing I was looking at a new one is NTR, which is basically Nutrient Ltd, which is a fertilizer stock company, and with gas being so rare right now, fertilizer takes a big hit because I think around 40-50% of gas is actually coming 40-50% of making fertilizers comes from gas. So gas is a very big compound. And if gas prices increase, then production increases too, but then the fertilizers become more expensive, and fertilizers, of course, we need for the food industry, right? So I'm looking for a re-entry over here, most likely. But that depends, of course, a lot on what comes out today with Trump. If this continues, if actually Iran is jumping on that train and actually admitting and saying, yes, there's peace talks, then we need to be a little more careful, right? So then market flips into a buy. Because as soon as there's peace talks and as soon as there's actually a resolution coming up, markets will pump, right? And then the direct opposite. If war becomes worth, then it will continue to go down, okay? And that's why you see heavily tech stocks were increasing 6%, 2%, 5%, 10%. And then, of course, when we speak about gold and silver, gold had a little bit of a pullback. Problem is now with gold is that we are in a bearish active sequence leading to 3,400, which is actually crazy. But we already dropped insanely, and I'm not taking any positions right now, neither buy nor sell until I understand what this piece market fake out bullshit. And sorry for calling it like that, but it's just I call confusion. How this continues, right? So I'm going to be very, very, very nuanced in taking any trades this week and very careful. Same goes for silver, of course. Silver nearly hits the target of bearish sequence, which is at 60. Let's see how it continues. Of course, if now Dixie continues to go lower, if Dixie now continues to go lower because of peace talks and whatsoever, then metals will start to pump, right? So the playbook now is if peace talks continue and there's actually some confirmation, then gold and silver will, oh, now I closed silver, amazing. Gold and silver will pump, right? If not, then the S&P will continue to sell off and oil will continue to go higher again, right? So that's very good for our energy plays. So we're kind of like positioned both sides, just seeing where it goes, and whatever hits stop loss, and whatever continues to pump will make a big returns back. And that's the game plan for now. It's very difficult to be one-sided. It's dangerous to say, okay, I'm betting on continuous war, I'm betting on peace agreements in the future and a resolution, and therefore pumping the market. So you need to be kind of long and short right now, in my opinion, to maximize profit. And I'm keeping my 10% a month return since beginning of the year. So Jan I had 10% plus, Feb I had 10%, March so far looks like 10%, and we still have a couple of days still this week to close. So I'm trying to keep my 10% gain on my accounts as much as possible with these positions, and so far it has been going very well. Of course, you could have made more money with oil, of course you could have made more money with anything, but it's very difficult because from one to another day it can change, and then of course stop losses are triggered, right? If you have been positioned wrong yesterday, you might have lost a lot of money, right? I haven't lost anything, basically no stop loss hits, nothing, right? Because I'm being very nuanced with the trades. Now crypto, my predictions for now is that actually there's a continuous war going on, so it's going to spiral again. So therefore Dixie is going to go up, therefore S&P is going to sell off, therefore BTC is going to sell off, therefore oil is going to go higher again, therefore gold and silver is going to drop again, right? And therefore other stocks are going to drop too. Okay, so that's my most likable outcome for right now. Of course, if there's today follow-ups of more peace and also confirmation from Iran, like Trump saying there's more peace, Trump saying there's actually a talk, and Iran actually stepping into confirming a little bit of that, that's going to be very positive for the markets. Overall, if you look into different tools, like for example chatter flow, just to understand a little bit more what is actually happening behind the headlines, right? You will see that for whatever reason you're logging me out, you see we are still, yesterday we had 402 million in call flow in general, and around close to 300, nearly 400. So it's still pretty neutral. It's still more bullish, but still pretty neutral, not 100% convinced. There's still a lot of sells and there's still a lot of buys, kind of neutral. So it's like, you know, not fully convinced. So we need to continue to track flow and actually see. Now, if you go into BTC, you can see that there's a lot of buy orders coming in at 65. So we have a lot of support at 65 coming in, and then nothing really else. So we might drop to 65 and then see a upside. So 65 and then see a continuous upside, maybe. Again, I'm still more bearish. This sideways trend, this accumulation phase over here will lead into a distribution, most likely towards the downside, just because we are not seeing an edge towards the upside, and we should have already come higher, make new highs to confirm a trend. And of course, that is very difficult right now at these times, okay? Especially if you go into Market Monkey, we can go into checking a little bit more of what is happening. You can see order book balance flipped into bearish again. Even though we had the quick buy up yesterday, we are getting bearish again, and we are struggling with the yesterday's value high. We are not breaking it. And at the same time, we actually see a lot of movement over here. There's no real sells besides at around 80,000. We have some sells coming in, spot wise. Now futures wise, it's looking a little bit different. Futures wise, you can see there's actually sell volume coming in, pretty strong one, 15 million, and then we have another 32 million at around 72, right? So if you go into BTC again and you check 72, around here we have a lot of sell volume coming in, right? You can see we are rejecting. If you zoom in a little bit, you can see these you can see this bearish pressure coming in, and really selling off with these wicks, right? So there is actually a lot of sell pressure in this area 72 here. So should we look for a sell? Not really. Don't confirm that. It's too dangerous, but it looks more like a sell-off right now, right? And there's more pressure towards the downside than towards the upside. Besides that, what else is happening in the market? Currency-wise, what are we strong in? Let's speak about Forex and then finish this up. US dollar returns to be pretty strong today. So we have probably a risk off day. Of course, we are in risk off territory. So US dollar is strong in risk off. JPY should be strong in risk off, and Swiss franc, of course. So you can see that perfectly. Now, when it comes to Forex, there actually has been a position that I had open, which unfortunately would have worked out without Trump coming in, which is GBP CAD, but stop loss break even. And right now I'm just looking for re-entries. There was a good setup which is CAD JPY, but I decided not to enter just because of how confusing the market was yesterday, to get some more understanding, which would have worked out so far. But again, it's so difficult to say right now, guys. I'm really careful with yesterday and of course also today, to see a little bit more understanding. I am positioned. There's no reason to risk and hit stop losses just because you are trading this confusion, right? You are not that smart to trade this. If you come out in profit from month to month, of course you have an edge and you're doing well. But trading this scenario right now, where Iran and Israel and the US is kind of manipulating, or especially the US manipulating the markets, and actually Iran even calling them out. And there's a lot of insider trading, right? Again, 15 minutes before before Trump's tweet came out, there was a lot of shorts being opened. There was another wallet that I was tracking that was heavily selling oil 15 minutes before. So there's a lot of insider bullshit going on. And of course, my brother is bagging a lot of money, okay? With that being said, guys, be careful in the markets. Positions are open and stay and remain open. We updated on that. Now you hopefully understand the whole confusion from yesterday. It's important to understand that. And with that being said, guys, make sure to follow my trading account, because I do daily updates, my Instagram trading account. I do daily market updates, short ones where you're informed and you actually know everything that is happening. And that comes from a professional trader and investor. So with that being said, see you in the next one.